It's an incredible and humble honor. Thank you so much to be inducted into the Drake Relays Hall of Fame. I always dreamed of competing on the world's greatest stage, and Drake Relays brought that to us and to the athletes. And I was always honored to travel and compete here at the Drake Relays. What's interesting is when I say that I had always dreamed of competing on the world's greatest stage, for me, I thought that was going to be somehow in basketball, right? So I went to college to play basketball at 5'2". I didn't know that I was 5'2". Being from Kentucky, all we had was horses and hoops. And so going into college, some of you guys, I think, even just sharing some of these stories, just as we were reminiscing, and Coach Irving being here, my throws coach, just the way that the Lord works out in things in mysterious ways. And so my older brother was at the Air Force Academy. I'll try to make this quick. And he was taking a tennis class. We had to take PE classes, and as coaches, we had to teach PE classes. And so Coach Irving was actually a substitute teacher one day when my brother was in this tennis class with Coach Irving. And my brother said, my sister's coming here to play basketball, but she threw shot and disc in high school. And so maybe she can, throw for you. And he patted my older brother on the head and said, young man, unless your sister towers over you, I don't think she's throwing shot and disc. And he goes, well, she played softball, but there's no softball team. And he said, well, she can try out. And honestly, the rest is kind of history. And so I played basketball my freshman year, and then walked on to the track team. Basketball was difficult, to say the least. There at the academy as a freshman, going through your freshman year, but then also at the next level. And so I'm just going to share a bit of my testimony, if I could. I found myself very frustrated with the basketball situation. I would say my parents kicked me out when I was 16. They say that I ran away from home, but really I went to play basketball at a high school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because I wanted to play ball at the next level. And so I remember praying, like, God, I thought you made me a basketball player. Like, what's going on? Like, I hate the game now. And this is when I was just starting to, talk to the track coach, and I was trying to get coach to get me to quit basketball so it'd make more sense. Like, oh, you told me to quit, I'll come. And I felt a couple things. So one, in talking to Coach Irving, Scott Irving, he said, I'm not going to tell you to quit. He goes, but if you believe in a God that can tell those mountains to jump over and get on the other side of that interstate. And I remember it says mountains into the sea, right, in the scriptures, but you got the picture being at the base of the mountains there in Colorado. He said, I think we can do something special. And I felt like God saying, Dana, I made you an athlete. I didn't make you a basketball player. And so he said, when you want to compete and do this for my glory and not for yours, the world is there for your taking. And so my brother gave me a quote that said, to achieve beyond your ability, you must believe in a power beyond yourself. And when you realize that God wants to bless you and use you, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him, all psychological limits vanish and you are free to achieve. And so I go through my freshman year trying to figure out how to chuck a spear. And I told my parents not to laugh when they came to my first track meet. I said, I don't look like everybody else. I was a catcher. I said, I look like I'm coming up from behind the home plate and I'm just trying to gun somebody down at second base. And so I'm like, don't laugh. I didn't have like the run up, the crossover. And so I remember my freshman year, Coach Irving said, well, if you throw 130 feet, you can go on the next travel meet. So much to his surprise, I threw 132, but the travel squad was already listed. And in my mind, I made a statement say, like, I'm never going to get left at home again. And so I made it a point to do everything that I could and to get on the bus or to get on the plane to the next trip. And so I roll up to the Drake Relays my sophomore year, and at College Street and 30th, I think there's probably some officials and folks that remember, it was basically a field down the street. It's not where they compete the throws now. An old boy in his John Deere tractor comes up and just parks right on the side of the field, right? And he's got a beverage, and he's just watching the meet. And I'm like, where are we? Like, what is, like, we ain't in Kansas anymore, right? And so I think I was telling Blake on the phone when he called me about this, and I said, I have some just incredible memories about the experience of it. But I still don't know that I had grasped what the Drake Relays was. But I attribute Drake Relays to me actually learning how to throw the javelin, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Because I've been thrown a year and I made it qualified for. But if you haven't noticed, I'm 5'2", and the javelins are a little long. And so I'm coming up, and I don't even know how I was throwing coming up to this point, but I'm running down the runway, and I had this problem of constantly dropping my shoulders. And so I'm coming down the runway, and I hear not one, but two, dropping the javelin. It hits the runway, not once, but twice. And so I guess what happened is I hit off the ground, and I'm like embarrassed because it's, and so it pops back up, and I just whammed out. And like in the jab, you have to wait until it lands in order, right, for you to then be under control to leave the runway. All I wanted to do was go hide in a hole because I just like scratched the jab. I hooked the thing. Like it literally has a hook in the back of it. And all of a sudden, because even though we were at college in 30th, there was a crowd. Like that's what was amazing. There was a crowd, right? And you hear this, oh, and a bunch of, right? And I'm like falling off the runway, like trying to go hide. And it's a mark, and it was like, it's the first time I ever broke 170 feet. It was like 172.3 or something like that. And I was like, I was embarrassed. Like, I don't even know that I was excited that but so I attribute Drake relays to learn how to actually have your hand up to make it fly. You're gonna bounce it off the runway. But then we come back in, and I think walking then into the venue, after winning that event, walking into the venue to just start to like get the feel and the history, and whether I knew it or not, right, going into the event itself has this way of inspiring. And so I want to talk just a moment about the inspiration. This event, to me, is, like I said, the world's greatest stage, right? So we're bringing some of the world's greatest stage. I'm humbled to have been a part of that as a college athlete and then as professional, or post-collegiate, and professional, jet throwers, you know what I mean? But with the Air Force, I was taking care of. And then as a collegiate coach and a post-collegiate coach. And so it constantly brings this feeling of inspiration, and it inspires the history that exudes from here. It's a very prestigious event. But I can say without any question, it was never pretentious. There was always a sincerity and always a joy in those that volunteered their time. I think 48, I'm sorry that you missed the boat on 67. Is that the longest run here? Huh? It's not even close. I mean, and so the officials made it real, right? They made it to where you were a fan as well as an official, and that meant a lot to an athlete versus telling us what to do, where to go, and where to be. And so I won't tell that story, I don't have that much time. But just the officials, and even as a coach, I came back and they're like, it's so great to see you back in track and field. I can't tell how many times I tried to put track and field in my rearview mirror, and then Blake calls again, and it's back here in the forefront. It keeps calling me back in because of the inspiration, because of the history, because of the memories that are made. I think of my mom. I give her a hard time that she would always go to those Sunny meets, and my dad, she goes, no, I came twice. Well, she came when my husband was throwing here, which is when she would come to the Drake Relays meets. But it was always the meet that my dad would drive to, and so we just kind of had this father-daughter experience, and just really special for me to get to experience that, have both my parents here. Dad, Mom, how you've inspired me to never quit, to never settle for the fact that I picked my parents wrong and I'm 5'2", and to not let that limit me in the heart of the champion. And then the inspiration I think that it has moving forward. And so I'll tell a brief story real quick. My parents just got done or just left visiting my brother's kids, my nephews. I have 6 nephews, and the oldest one has gotten into track and field. And Dad was just telling me the story that, I shouldn't say just, he's a sophomore, and he's turning into a pretty good runner. And so, they get to say goodbye, and Dad says, yeah, we're going up to the Drake Relays. And Eli's like, he says, the Drake Relays? Like, what are you doing there? He's like, well, Aunt Dana used to throw there. He's like, she used to, the inspiration and the seeds that you have planted in generations to come, and past, present, future, I think is really remarkable. So now I have a secret dream of bringing my nephew here someday. I'd like to see if I can get him competing, but one day I'm going to watch him compete here at the Drake Relays if Aunt Dana has anything to do with that or not. And so finally on the inspiration, Coach Irving, you've inspired me from day one. The belief that you have placed inside of me, how you convinced Coach Lindemann to take on a 5'2" basketball player, and at my first meet you said, this girl's going to be an All-American, and I said, I'm going to quit because this is embarrassing. And the faith that I've shared with Coach Irving and Coach Lindemann, I think is what inspired me to not only to make you all proud, but then to glorify God and our Father in heaven with the skills and the abilities that he's given, to where while we're competing on a great stage, for me, it was always competing for an audience of one, and the joy and the ride of that. And so, Coach, the inspiration. So I'm going to probably embarrass Coach Irving for just a moment, but he had so much belief in us, so much tenacity, so much never give up, so much he never gave up on us as an athlete. But he used to write us poems. So I'm going to close with a poem that I believe you titled Inspire. And so he used to write us poems going into the conference championship meets or into big meets. And a lot of times he didn't have to like yell and get on it or make me run because I'm a thrower I wasn't going to. Right, but he just had this way of inspiring. I remember at the NCAA's trying to go for a back-to-back, and he just looked at me and he just pointed to the sky. Right? It wasn't saying you're number one. He just said, from where does my help come from? And so I'm going to read this. It's not mine, but I think it's important for you to hear his heart and how he inspired us athletes. It says, do you see the throw before you? Does it captivate your mind? An effort for the ages, a mark transcending time. Do you see the throw before you? Does it rank among your best? Is it perfect? Is it flawless? Does it symbolize your quest? No throw is truly perfect. It's the reason that we strive to see a flawless moment that's hidden deep inside. Our very human nature and our spiritual unrest, that God would grant us power, a guide through the test. Do you see the throw before you? Does it rise to meet the test? Is it perfect? Is it flawless? If inspired, answer yes. For inspiration gives us meaning, provides a guiding spark to dig down deep and never quit, dimensions of the heart. And when the battle rages, champions respond to the call of glory, a ring or a runway song. You see the throw before you. It is your very best. It is perfect. It is flawless. God inspired and God blessed. So this venue is timeless. It's ever inspiring for me, and to come back into these hallowed grounds will forever be etched in my mind, even if I still want to remember the College Street and College and 30th Street. I did compete there. My dad would go and he goes, where do I stand? How do I do this? And we supposed to clap? I'm like, it's like golf, like afterwards, right? Like, or after a free throw, I think I said. He doesn't know golf. After a free throw, right? And so he would go stand, just past my PR. And so to quote Coach Lindemann one time, if ifs and buts are fruits and nuts, right? So my PR is still 196.6. However, Dad was standing past the 200-foot line, and it was in a warm-up, and you just kind of feel that relaxation, explosion, and I throw it past Dad, and all he does is, like why don't you do that in the meet? And for me, again, to take, I don't want to say over-spiritualize, but take this one step deeper, if you've seen the javelin and how uncomfortable and ridiculous some of these positions that you hit, I've called the power position of the javelin my Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. And so it's this really uncomfortable, awful wait upon the Lord position that happens in a moment of time, right? But the moment that you try to bring in your own strength and that it's about you is that time that throw is short, it's shallow, it doesn't, right, pass the POPS test, right? So I was able to experience, and so while I know that I've only ever thrown 196.6, I got it, right? But Drake Relays will always, forever, even more personal to me, be one of those throws where I know for a fact, right, that I was able to put one out there, and so I'm still always inspired, right, to relax, to let God do his work through the stretching and the component of that part of the throw. And so it's not the victories won, but the history of Drake Relays will always be a treasured part of my journey. And so thank you so much. This is an honor to be back here, and thank you for just the hospitality. You guys have rolled out the red carpet and attention to every detail. This has been an honor, and I'm looking forward to watching some awesome track and field today and continue to be inspired. So thank you so much, and I appreciate everything.